Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Today's card features Altenew's Build a Garden for the month of July, Sulphur Cosmos, and it is absolutely stunning. Aside from this big gorgeous bloom, I also love that the coordinating stencil set has an additional stencil to create a background. This really is a large bloom, so it is perfect for a 5x7 card. I'll be doing an A2 size, so I'll be trimming it down. I'm using the stamp wheel to stamp this image on an oversized piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. To get a nice crisp image, I'm using a pressure tool. I'll also be inking it up a second time. I don't have to worry about the alignment because the stamp wheel will ensure that everything will line up perfectly. This stamp set comes with lots of amazing sentiments. I chose the bold big hugs, which I am stamping on a separate piece of cardstock. I'm going to be using the add-on die set. After the stenciling has been completed, both the flowers and the sentiment will be die cut. Like the flowers, I'll be stamping the sentiment 2 times. The font is very thick and I want the lettering to be consistently black. And once again, I'm using the pressure tool to apply even pressure. When stenciling, I like to use the slim grip sticky mat. Both the front and back are sticky. Not only will the mat be secured to the work surface, the panel that you're stenciling will also be held in place on the sticky mat while you are stenciling. The flowers are going to be colored using the Rose Petal Fresh Dye ink set. The inks will be applied with either the mini or micro blending brushes. I love these brushes. You have such excellent control over the application of the ink. Stencil 1 has 3 different sections for stenciling. They are divided with etched lines and numbered, so it is very clear how to proceed. The first section, I'm applying rose quartz. This is the lightest tone in the rose petal family. This is a beautiful, delicate shade of pink. Turn my stencil to the second section and line that up with the petals. This group of petals will be colored with the next gradient ink, Puffy Heart. This ink is darker than the previous one. When coloring the petals, I apply more pressure at the base of them. It was difficult to see a difference in the rose quartz because the ink is so light, but it is definitely much more noticeable with Puffy Heart. The final section on this stencil will color in the flower center for the top flower. First apply Citrus Burst, and then the stamen area will be colored with Maple Yellow. We'll continue with stencil 2 to complete the flower petal coloring. This stencil will have 2 different ink applications, and once again they're divided by an etched line. Altenew's Fresh Dye ink families are made up of 4 different inks that are in a gradient. They go from lightest to darkest. I'm applying the 3rd ink in the Rose Petal family. This one is called Purple Wave. To complete the flower petals, the stencil is turned around to the other side of the etched line. For these final petals, I'll be using the darkest ink, Cosmic Berry. I love the natural feel you get by using different tones of the same color of ink for the different sections of petals. And in addition, concentrating that ink near the base of the petal and then lightening it up at the petal's edge, in my opinion, enhances the beauty of the flower. Stenciling makes the coloring so easy. To achieve this look with other mediums would be a lot more labor intensive. All right, we're on to stencil 3, and this one is divided into 3 sections, and we'll start with the center of the flower, again using Citrus Burst, followed by Maple Yellow. Next section will color the stems and one of the leaves that sits in the back, so I'm going to use a very dark green called Shadow Creek. I just love the progression of the stenciling and just seeing how this flower comes to life. No matter your skill level or experience, stenciling really allows you to achieve an excellent result. The stencil is moved around so that I'm at the other side of the edge line, and I'll get the leaves lined up. And I'm just rubbing my blender brush on some cardstock to remove some of that dark ink, and I'll start at the base of each of the leaves with an ink called Grass Field. And when I'm done, again, I'll give my brush a good rub on the scrap piece of paper, and then I'm going to finish up with a light green ink called Firefly. This will be applied to the tips of the leaves, giving them a pretty highlight. And as easy as that, the stenciling of the cosmos is complete. This stencil set has a fourth stencil that creates the background, but first I'm going to die cut both the cosmos and my sentiment with the add-on die set. I'm using small pieces of low-tack tape to hold the dies in place as they go through the die cutter. I really love adding dimension to cards, so I'm going to use both of these dies to cut white sheet foam. And then the cosmos and the sentiment will be stacked on them. Anything adhered to foam can take a little bit of extra drying time, so I'll set these aside while I start working on my background. All right, so this is the fourth stencil, and I'm taping watercolor paper to the back of it and holding it in place with some Post-it note tape. I'll be applying white texture paste to the stencil using a palette knife. And to keep my work surface clean, I have it sitting on a piece of paper toweling. Once the paste is distributed, I'll make a couple of more passes to make sure that the paste is smooth and that the thickness is consistent. For me, this never gets old. Just look at this beautiful design when the stencil is peeled off. Before I continue, I'll wash both my palette knife and the stencil in warm water. After the panel is completely dry, I'll be adding in some watercolor. The first thing that I'm going to do is to take clean water, and I'll paint both the front and the back of the panel liberally. This will help it to lay flat when it's on the work surface, but the first thing that I'm going to do is to add my paint along the left-hand edge of the panel. I'll start off with some pretty teal and then finish up with green. I'll let the paint move on its own, helping it now and again with my brush to help soften the edges. I'll now just apply some more clean water to soften the color in this corner. Just let the cosmos hover over top of my panel so I can see where the edges are. I want to add in some more color to create a shadow area along the edge. Because the panel was wetted on the back, it will lie completely flat on the work surface while it dries with no warping. And when it's completely dry, I'll add in some spatter with white gouache that has been slightly watered down using a fan brush. And once the spatter is dry, which doesn't take very long, then the cosmos can be adhered to the left-hand corner of this card front. Foam back sentiment has been adhered on top of the lower portion of the cosmos, and then it is adhered to an A2 size card base. This card will be finished up with some pretty embellishments using the sugar plum enamel dots. And that wraps up this pretty card featuring Altenew's Build a Garden for the month of July, Sulphur Cosmos. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I appreciate your visit.